was to be concealed through secret societies, some of which trace themselves back thousands of years. It was these same powers that Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli warned were contending against the governments of the world.
This plan that goes back hundreds if not thousands of years tends to be kept in the bowels of these blood oath secret societies, and by that I mean the Shriners, the Freemasons, the Odd Fellows, the Illuminati, the Order of the Palladian. There are literally dozens of names down throughout the centuries that this goes by, but it has to be in one of these groups where you have to swear to kill a fellow member of the society if they reveal the secrets, or you yourself be killed by a member of the society if you reveal the secrets. That's what blood oaths are. And they start out bad, but they get worse as you go up in the organization. Now, not all of them take it all that seriously. Some of them just do it because, as I was promised when I was 21, you become a Mason, your financial fortunes are guaranteed for the rest of your life. And, I bolted. I said, no, I'm not. I don't think Christ would approve of this.
Weishaupt saw in the ancient orders of Freemasonry an opportunity to commission foot soldiers for his cause of world domination. He wrote that none is fitter than the 3 lower degrees of Freemasonry. The public is accustomed to it, expects little from it, and therefore takes little notice of it.
Weishaupt felt that Masonry was the easiest way to get a good Christian guy on the path of destruction, essentially, where you can have them take little baby steps on this path. It's a system they've been working on for thousands of years. They've really got it down. They know how to gradually, gently corrupt people from Christendom, first of all, to deism. Of course, deism is where, yes, God started the world, but then he took off, and he has no place in the affairs of men now. And so you don't have to worry about God, you don't have to worry about heaven and hell. You just kind of do your thing, and everything will be okay. Deism to atheism is the next step. Atheism, where you claim there is no God. And then, of course, the next step is out and out Satanism. And interestingly enough, Satanists know there's God, know there's a heaven and hell, and they just choose hell, and they choose to drag as many people into hell as they can. Yes, Masons were instrumental in the founding of this country. A large percentage of the founding fathers were Masons, but that doesn't mean that a large percentage of the founding fathers were evil men. You have to look at Masonry as a way to get good Christians, to lure good Christians gradually over to deism, to atheism, and eventually to Satanism. That's the purpose of Freemasonry. It's to lure good people into these evil roads. Why? Because if you have an evil secret society where you're trying to create the Antichrist here on earth, not many people are going to come and join up. So you have to convince them that they're doing something good for the world, gradually get them in, and little by little try to corrupt them.
Weishaupt gained the allegiance of low-level Masons by telling them that the Illuminati held the true sense of Christianity. "Behold our secret," he said, "if in order to destroy all Christianity, all religion, we have pretended to have the sole true religion, remember that the end justifies the means." Because of this, some have argued that Weishaupt corrupted Freemasonry.
He didn't have to corrupt Masonry. Masonry is a corruption skateboard ready-made for his purposes. There's no difference with what Weishaupt did. He just put a name to it and he got caught. That's the only difference. That whole system, what do you want to call it? A sleigh ride into hell, descent into hell, has always been in existence. It's just Masonry formalized it, categorized it, worked on it, perfected it, and then Weishaupt came along and said, well, now how do we make them go a little faster? That's all he did.
The religion of Masonry, while often cloaked with Christian titles, is actually based upon the ancient mystery religion of Babylon and Egypt. These same mysteries governed the worship of Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. The mysteries are often symbolized by the all-seeing eye, sometimes called the eye of God. But the God of Masonry is not the same as the God of the Bible. None was more adamant about this point than the man considered by many to be the most influential Mason of all time, Albert Pike.
Albert Pike was a Confederate Civil War general who was the head of American Freemasonry in the post-Civil War period. He's certainly the most important American Mason. His book, Morals and Dogma, is required reading for every Freemason.
He says on page 624, the 28th degree, Teachings of the 28th degree, he says, quote, "Masonry is identical with the ancient mysteries." Okay? And then he goes on, he says, we reproduce the speculations of the philosophers, the Kabbalists, the mystiques, and the Gnostics, unquote. Well, these were all systems, religious systems, that worshipped Lucifer.
Pike probably mistakenly reveals his true intent because he speaks of Lucifer frequently.
When he says we are identical to all the mysteries, the mysteries were all brought under God's condemnation and destroyed at one point or another in history. From the Babylonian mysteries to the Egyptian mysteries to the peoples living in the land of Canaan. When the major reason God destroyed them, He ordered them to be killed, man and woman and child, as they were all worshiping Satan.
Now see, Masons distinguish between Lucifer and Satan. Masons believe that Lucifer is the light bearer, the good God, and that the Christian God is called Adonai, the evil God. They use as their justification that if the Christian God was a good God, then there wouldn't be this Garden of Eden problem where because you ate of the apple, now you have to suffer and you have to, the sweat of your brow, you have to make your living. Well, women have to give birth in pain, etc. No good father would do that to his children. So the Christian God is the evil God, where Lucifer is the good God because he'll give you everything you want. He'll fulfill your every desire.
In 1908, French occult expert Copin Albancelli wrote, "Certain Masonic societies exist which are satanic, not in the sense that the devil comes to preside at their meetings, but in that their initiates profess the cult of Lucifer. They adore him as the true God, and they are animated by an implacable hatred against the Christian God, whom they declare to be an impostor." Perhaps Albert Pike's most famous and controversial quote is this one: "The true and pure philosophic religion is the belief in Lucifer, the equal of Adonai. But Lucifer, God of light, is struggling for humanity against Adonai, the God of darkness and evil." Because of this, occult author Edith Starr Miller wrote, "Luciferian occultism controls Freemasonry." It is important to remember that the lower ranks of Masonry are largely unaware of the deception of their leaders. Master Mason Manly P. Hall, who said that when the Mason learns the mystery of his craft, the seething energies of Lucifer are in his hands, also made it clear that Freemasonry is a fraternity within a fraternity, an outer organization concealing an inner brotherhood of the elect. Meanwhile, Albert Pike wrote in his famous Morals and Dogma that symbols are displayed to the initiate, but he is intentionally misled by false interpretations. It is not intended that he shall understand them, but it is intended that he shall imagine that he shall understand them. Jesus said, "I spoke openly to the world, and in secret have I said nothing." Nevertheless, secret societies by their very nature openly reject the example of Christ. As Albancelli wrote, "It is professed in these societies that all that the Christian God commands is disagreeable to Lucifer. In consequence, one must do all that the Christian God forbids, and one must shun like fire all that he commands." Even to gain entrance into these societies, a man must violate the commandment of God. For the Lord has said, "Make no oath at all, either by heaven or by the earth, nor shall you make an oath by your head. But let your statement be, yes, yes, or no, no. Anything more than these comes from the evil one."
In 1826, a stonecutter by the name of Captain William Morgan He was also a Christian. He was a Mason and a Christian, and eventually those two clashed, and he decided he not only had to leave the Masonic order, but he had to expose it to get other guys to leave the Masonic order too. So he was the first American to publish the first 3 degrees of the Masonic oaths. So what happened after the book came out, he and his publisher were kidnapped by a group of Masons by night, and the townspeople were immediately alerted, and they gave chase. The publisher was let loose. He got away. But they kept Morgan and ended up killing him. They wrapped him in chains and threw him in a river. And so Morgan was killed. But of course his book lives on. I have a copy of it. Anybody can buy it, detailing the first 3 degrees of Freemasonry. But the results of that were very dramatic. This was in New York, close to Niagara Falls. And it caused even an entire political party nationwide to spring up, the Anti-Masonic Party, which did battle and was directly opposed to Jefferson's Republican Party, and even ran a candidate for president. They got many people in several states elected to Congress, and generally were a major force on the scene for decades to come, decades into the future.
On that anti-Masonic party, I've heard from another source that it was later discovered that the anti-Mason party was being run by Masons. Any truth to that?
Was the anti-Masonic party being run by Masons? I don't know the facts, but it wouldn't surprise me at all, because Masons love to infiltrate organizations. I mean, they've infiltrated the major religions in this country, to where we went to a church in Upperville, Virginia for a while, and after the pastor learned that I was doing this book, he came out and said, yeah, you know, I was a Mason. And I came out, I started speaking out against it from the pulpit, and my career plummeted from that point. So he was at this little backwater Baptist church in Upperville, and he said that 90% of the Southern Baptist hierarchy are Masons, and that if you wish to excel in the Southern Baptist ministry, you have to be a Mason. He said the same was true of, I believe, both Lutherans and Methodists, that he estimated that it was 90% Masonically infiltrated at that point. So that's pretty tough. Now, not all these guys are of evil intent, you know. Probably the vast majority have just gone through the first 3 degrees. But even then, Masons, you know, can subtly influence them. And that's why there's a huge battle every year in the Southern Baptist annual conference over whether to come out strongly opposing Freemasonry. It's a huge battle every year.